الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فانطلقا حتى إذا ركبا في السفينة خرقها قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها لقد جئت شيئا إمرا صدق الله العظيم. Most respected ulama kiram, brothers and elders, this is an ayat of Surah Kahf, which inshallah we are all familiar with. It is a surah of the Quran Sharif regarding which great virtues have been narrated. It is mentioned that the person who recites this surah on the day of Jumu'ah, Allah Ta'ala blesses him with such a noor which extends from the earth to the heavens, and this remains with him for the entire week till the next Jumu'ah. The person who recites the surah, the first 10 ayat, according to some hadith, a person who memorizes the first 10 ayats, and according to some the last 10 ayats, then he will be protected from the fitna of Dajjal. Now on the one hand, this protection from the fitna of Dajjal, this noor that Allah Ta'ala blesses a person, these are sometimes words for us. Fine, there's something like noor. Well, there is a reality like Dajjal. But the depth of this is something that sometimes does not dawn upon our hearts. It's not something we fully understand and realize. What is the depth of this that is being mentioned in these ahadith, this noor that a person is granted, the safety from the fitna of Dajjal? Noor is a word that we are in some ways familiar with. It means light. The physical light or the external light that we see also. This too is something which is of great importance to us. In the dead of night, when it's absolutely dark, if a person doesn't have any light, then we all know how difficult it can be. Person cannot see anything. He doesn't know where he's going, what he's doing, what he might be picking up. It might be a stick or a snake. He has no idea. Where he'll put his next foot, he might just fall into a deep ditch. That might be the end of him. He might harm himself very seriously. He might cause harm to others. People in the darkness thought they were trying to protect their family. They thought it was a burglar. They thought it was somebody trying to intrude. And the person in the darkness, he fired a shot. Then when suddenly after putting some light on, he realized he shot his own family person. This is darkness. In darkness, a person cannot make any kind of decision correctly sometimes. He doesn't know where he's heading, what he's doing. And when there's light, then in that light he can see clearly what's going on. He can see who is the friend, who is the enemy. He can see where is the benefit, where is the harm. And then the other aspect about it is that if a person does not know what is the reality of things sometimes, or does not realize it, what is the correct thing, somebody who is a sweet talker can easily deceive him. Many a times a person who is a very smart businessman, let me say somebody, in the words that I used, somebody took him for a ride. Now despite being so smart, but he got deceived. So now if he has that ability to discern everything, that nobody can deceive him, what a big benefit it is to him. Now these are things generally to the extent of dunya. Here in the surah we have been promised this noor which is beyond the noor of dunya. It is that light which will enlighten his dunya also, which will enlighten his qabr as well, because of the a'mal that will be possible for him. It will enlighten the day of Qiyamah for him. And at that time when the munafiqeen will be also looking for this noor, يوم يقول المنافقون والمنافقات للذين آمنوا انظرونا نقتبس من نوركم. The day of Qiyamah will be darkness, and the light will be the light of Iman and Amal. To the extent of the person's Iman, his Amal, he'll have light. And now the believers will be moving in this light. The munafiqeen and hypocrites who had externally expressed themselves as mu'mineen, as believers, within themselves they were something else. On that day they'll be now in this bewilderment. How do we try to find some light too? They'll be calling out to the believers. You can see they're moving ahead in some light. Wait, let us benefit from your light also. Like somebody is driving with his headlights on, another person's headlights are not working. He says, okay, I'll just drive behind you. Just carry on following you, I'll get my way across too. So when this will become the case on the day of Qiyamah, they would say, wait for us. Unzuruna naqtabis min nurikum. They will be told, قِيلَ ارْجِعُوا وَرَاءَكُمْ فَالْتَمِسُوا نُورًا. Go back to the dunya and bring a nur from there and come. There's no nur here now for you to gain. So these opportunities, this nur that Allah Ta'ala is giving us, this opportunity to acquire now. All the amal, this recitation of Surah Kahf, it enlightens a person's dunya, it will bring light for him on the day of Qiyamah also. And then this deception of Dajjal, one is the big Dajjal that will come before Qiyamah. But Nabi Sallallahu warned about many smaller Dajjals, who are not the Dajjal that is the Dajjal that will come, but they are on the same path. On a much smaller scale, but on the same path. So the benefit of reciting the surah is that a person will get saved from these fitnas of the Dajjal. One is the main Dajjal, obviously, this is the main thing. But the barakat of it, inshallah, will help the person stay away from the deceptions of the smaller Dajjals also. If you get saved from the big Dajjal, why not the smaller Dajjals? Meaning all those who are trying to deceive him in his deen, in various guises. But person will be invited to things that don't have anything to do with deen, but will have the name of deen only. And in the name of deen, he will be invited to anything and everything. Everything will be given a hue and color of deen on the outside. Like a person, some rusty vehicle is painted it from the top. All rusted inside. It's a state of complete disrepair, made it look shining from the outside only. So things will be given the labels of deen, but behind it will be something else. It will be a deception. Person will be in a very beautiful way, very captivating way. The slogans will be very appealing. It will be that now this is all Quran and Hadith I'm giving you. But in the name of Quran and Hadith, it will be a person's own whims and fancies. And the person who doesn't know better gets deceived. So all these deceptions also, Allah Ta'ala will make it a means of inshallah protection from it. Obviously, that a person to stay away from these deceptions, he needs to follow those who are authentic and follow one direction. Somebody who he has the confidence in terms of deen, follow the one direction, khalas. He'll be safe. And he tries to take too many things here and there and see everything, he ends up nowhere. Ends up nowhere, he ends up in the wrong place. So in any case, this is the Surah Kahf, which has very great virtues. In the 15th para, we should be making a practice of this every Friday, every Jumu'ah, to recite the surah, 15-20 minutes, and for this short duration of time that it will take a person to recite the surah, there are such great benefits for him. In the surah, towards the end, Allah Ta'ala mentions the incident of Hazrat Musa and Hazrat Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam. That's what we wish to discuss briefly. But before that, one or two other lessons from the surah. Regarding the occasion when the surah was revealed, the Quraysh were prompted by the Jews, by the ulama of the Yahud, that you all go and ask these questions. This will become a decisive thing. If Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam can answer these questions, then genuinely he is a Nabi of Allah Ta'ala. He cannot answer these questions, then you know where he stands. And they prompted them to ask some questions, the question about the people of the cave, Ashabul Kahf. Sadda Zulqarnain, the great king of the time, Zulqarnain, and the wall that he built, etc. So in any case, they came and asked Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. At that time, this knowledge had not yet been revealed to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam regarding the people of the cave, regarding the king Zulqarnain, etc. So when something was asked to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam which he had not yet received any revelation about, so he would then await the revelation. He would await the wahi from Allah Ta'ala. So in anticipation of that wahi, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to them, come tomorrow I will tell you. Because he didn't have the answer ready for them at that moment. And he expected that now since they have asked me, Jibreel Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will come with wahi, he'll come with revelation, and I will then tell them. But it by chance happened that the word Insha'Allah got left out. So as they listen that how important this is, the wahi didn't come the next day, Jibreel Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't come the day after, it didn't come the third day. And now the Quraysh carried on coming, that you said tomorrow, where's that tomorrow, what happened? And na'udhu billah, they started now, after some days passed, they started jeering, mocking. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in a very, very difficult moment, very grieved about the situation. And 15 days passed. After 15 days, this surah was revealed. And in the surah, one ayat also, Allah Ta'ala revealed, وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. Don't ever express any intention about doing something the next day, tomorrow, or the future. Tomorrow is not necessarily just the day after, the future, anything about the future. But you must suspend it on the illa ayyasha Allah, on the will of Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala wills, then I'll do this. Allah Ta'ala wills, then I will come. Allah Ta'ala wills, then that will happen. Now this is a very deep lesson. One is, it is reinforcing this yaqeen that everything happens with the will of Allah Ta'ala alone. And this is the basis of a mu'min's iman, that he attributes everything to Allah Ta'ala. That he is not able to do anything, he cannot do anything, cannot save himself from anything. He has no power at all whatsoever. It all happens only with the will of Allah Ta'ala. Illa ayyasha Allah. And the lesson in this is that a mu'min, his tongue is forever expressing some remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. It's either Bismillah, it is Alhamdulillah, it is Insha'Allah, it is MashaAllah. He is forever linking himself to Allah Ta'ala. He is not linking himself to dunya. He is in the dunya. He will use the dunya. He'll earn the dunya. But he's attached to Allah Ta'ala. Not attached to the dunya. And therefore his tongue is also forever in the expression of the praises of Allah Ta'ala. And when a person is constantly, this is his day and night, constantly in the expression of the praises of Allah Ta'ala, the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala, then someday one moment will come when this life is going to leave. And when this has been what is generally on the tongue, then inshallah he'll live in that manner too. With the words of the greatness of Allah Ta'ala on his tongue, with the expression of the tawheed of Allah Ta'ala, La ilaha illallah on his tongue. Because his whole life felt like that. And on the other hand, Allah forbid, if his tongue was accustomed to all kinds of filthy talk, evil, lying, all kinds of flowery language, and what not. Allah Ta'ala protect us and save us. One person, Allah Ta'ala forgive, we are not to make any kind of conclusions about anybody. But what is the ibrat for us and the lesson for us is what we have to take. Some people were traveling and there was suddenly an accident. Some survived and some passed away. Now those who survived, they overheard one of the people passing away that the last words on his tongue, when suddenly he saw this impact coming. So now whatever was the normal reaction to something that he suddenly saw, what kind of expletive he just used to utter normally, that is what he uttered at that time. And all they know after that was the impact, and the person was gone. So a person was accustomed his tongue to the remembrance of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And he saved himself from all these kind of evil talks, all these kind of vices, of this flowery languages, and whatever else goes with it. And inshallah, at that very crucial time of death, at that time when everyone wants to say the right thing, nobody wants to leave saying something that will jeopardize the whole journey ahead. That this is the way to save ourselves, that from now we accustom this tongue to say what is right, to be engaged in Allah Ta'ala's remembrance, and save ourselves from all the evil talks. Inshallah, at that time too we'll go with the right things on our tongue. Then, another lesson in the surah. In the surah, Allah Ta'ala mentions the entire incident of the people of the cave. It's a lengthy incident, we won't go into the details at all, but just one point from it. These are some, just a brief background and the point that we wish to take a lesson from. This is an incident about some youngsters who were being pressurized by the king of the time to commit shirk. They refused to now join the people in the shirk. He said, no, we will worship Allah Ta'ala alone. So, when they were put under this ultimatum that either you give up your deen and come join us, otherwise your lives are going to go. So they quietly disappeared. Before that ultimatum, they disappeared and they went away into this one cave. Along that, when they went away, one dog that was belonging to one of them, so now to have a dog as a pet is not permissible. But a dog, if it's a guard dog, it's a dog for hunting, it's a dog for herding purposes, etc., that there is some leeway for that. So perhaps it was one of those kind of dogs. That dog accompanied them. It followed them. And when they went and hid inside this cave, this dog remained sitting outside. Allah Ta'ala brought about this slumber over these people. For 300 and some years they remained in this slumber and this sleep. And this dog was at this cave. In the Quran Sharif, Allah Ta'ala mentions the people of the Kahf and the cave. Alongside, Allah Ta'ala mentions وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَسِيدِ. Allah Ta'ala mentions the dog of the Ashabul Kahf, of the people of the cave. The Mufassirin write a point on this, that this is a dog, it's a lowly animal. This lowly animal accompanied this group of pious people. And it accompanied this group of pious people just because it was attached to them. The animal is an animal. But despite that, it being such a lowly animal, but when it joined this company of the pious people, it also got its mention made in the Quran Sharif. The space of honor came to this dog also. So Mufassirin explain on this note that if this is the benefit that this dog got, this lowly animal got, what about an insan who has iman in his heart? That if he accompanies those who are righteous, who are pious, he keeps himself in the right company, he saves himself from the wrong company, why won't he benefit? Why won't he get close to Allah Ta'ala? If Allah Ta'ala showed such a favor on this dog that Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran Sharif, why won't this mu'min get mentioned, or rather get honored by Allah Ta'ala, and in so many different ways, and especially the real place of honor on the day of Qiyamah, if he accompanies the righteous. Nevertheless, coming to the incident of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and Hazrat Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam, again this is a lengthy incident, just to take the main lesson from it. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, on one occasion, was asked a question. Wise people was asked the question that who is the most knowledgeable? Meaning at this point in time, who is the most knowledgeable? It's obvious the Nabi of the time, he is receiving wahi from Allah Ta'ala. And Musa alayhi salam is among the ulul azam, among the very great Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. And who was Kalimullah. He had the opportunity and the honor of conversing directly with Allah Ta'ala, without the intermediary of even the angel. So obviously this was the fact, this was the reality at the moment, at that point in time. that he was the most knowledgeable. So as a matter of stating the fact, which was a reality, which was 100% the fact, as a matter of stating the fact, he said, I, because that was the fact at that time, and he was aware of it, not in a manner of pride, not in a manner of saying, I'm somebody, but as a fact. If somebody is a hafiz, so somebody asks him, are you a hafiz? So now he's feeling very humble, he says, I'm not a hafiz. Now that's a lie now. But he won't say it out of pride. He'll express it, yes, he's a hafiz. Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala's grace and mercy. Allah Ta'ala accept it. But to feel proud over it, that my achievement, I am somebody, that now is a dangerous thing. Alhamdulillah, Allah's ni'mat. I am the weak and humble servant of Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala accept. So in any case, he stated this fact. But this too, considering his very high position, from that position, this too was something not the most appropriate thing to do. It was not the most appropriate on that high position. What was actually required was to, even though this was a known fact to him, to say Allah Ta'ala knows best. So because this was the case now, that he stated something but which was not the most appropriate response. And those, to the extent of their closeness to Allah Ta'ala, they are treated accordingly, they are taken to task accordingly for something which is a very, very minor issue in terms of it's not the best thing. They are taken to task for it. Whereas for somebody else, for the general person, that would be a very great virtue. That would be something that would be a very big thing that he did. But it wasn't the most appropriate for somebody at the very high level. So he sometimes, some way, given some kind of reprimand of sorts, that this wasn't the best thing. Allah Ta'ala commanded Musa alayhi salatu wasalam that there's a certain servant of ours, you should go and meet him and learn from him. Musa alayhi salam is a Nabi of Allah Ta'ala. The lengthy incident, all the details is given, where he'll find the person, etc. Eventually, he comes and meets Hazrat Khidr alayhi salatu wasalam as per the detail that was given to him. And he requests him, قال له موسى هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا, requesting in a very humble way. He's a Nabi of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Khidr Islam is also a Nabi. He's requesting that, can I join you so that I will learn from what you have been taught. So any case, again just condensing it, finally Khidr Islam allows him, you may come along, but on one condition, that you will not say anything, you will not object to anything, ask anything. Very well. So now they go on. As they now are journeying along, they come to a river bank. And they need to cross the river. So there are some people who have some boat, and they recognize the Khidr Salatu Wasalam, so they offer them a lift across. And that too they offer it for free. Because they know the Khidr Islam, so they offer this lift for free. As they are now moving along the river, Khidr Islam suddenly takes hold of one piece of plank or some board in the boat and he breaks it. Now, if he broke it, this would have now sunk. Some Mufassirin explained this was his miracle and mu'jiza, that despite having broken this, the water didn't come in. Some say he put it in something else in place. In any case, now it changed the look of it. It wasn't looking so nice anymore now, because this was now spoilt in a way. Musa alayhi salam immediately objected that these people did us a favor, they are taking us across for free, you now are damaging their boat. So as soon as he asked this question, Khidr Islam cautions him that, did I not tell you not to ask anything? Did I not tell you you're not going to be patient? He says, no, okay, mistake. Very well. Now they go along, they come to some place, there's a young child there. Khidr Islam moves ahead, gets hold of this child and kills him. Now, this was something Musa alayhi salam could not just stand back and watch. Immediately, because he was too as a Nabi of Allah Ta'ala, and when something was against what is the apparent command of Allah Ta'ala. But Khidr Islam was also a Nabi. He was receiving the command directly. Musa alayhi salam, according to his Sharia, he is going to have to take action or say something. So he again objected. that أَقَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا زَكِيَّةً بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا نُكْرًا. How did you do this? Why did you do this? This is a child that is still masoom, is not even of age. You killed him. Again, Khidr Islam cautions him. قال ألم أقل لك إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا وكيف تصبر على ما لم تحط به خبرا. I told you beforehand, you're not going to be able to bear this. And how are you going to ever bear something that you don't have the inner knowledge of? Because there's another part of this whole knowledge. This is something that's coming directly from Allah Ta'ala's side. So, okay, fine. If I do this again, then you can part ways. In any case, now they move on. They come to one village. They are hungry. They are traveling. They don't have anything. But these people still refuse to entertain them in any way, give them something to eat. So this was against every etiquette. The etiquette of deen, the etiquette of common, the custom of the people that they would always serve the guest, and especially a traveler. And in those days there was no other arrangement for the traveler. But they refused. So then they carried on moving on. As they come out and they're leaving this village, there's a wall that is collapsing. Khidr Salam starts repairing this wall. And obviously, he's doing it as a favor. Musa Salam objects again. These people were so rude. They were so unhospitable. They refused to entertain us with even the basic things. And now you do this for free. At least you could have taken some fee in return. You could have used that to purchase some food. So the Islam says, look, now we have to part ways. But before you go, let me tell you what happened. Let me give you the secret behind all this. Then he says to him that first incident where we were crossing the river on that boat and I damaged that boat. Outwardly you saw the one side of it. You saw these people are doing us a favor. I'm damaging the boat. But behind the scene, what was the reality you were not aware of? That lower downstream there was a tyrant king who was waiting there, looking at all the boats that passing by. And anything that was looking good, he was usurping it. I damaged this outwardly, there's a little bit of damage, but this didn't look too good for him now. So what wasn't good enough for him was going by. Outwardly this was a damage, outwardly it was harm, but in reality it saved everything. Externally it seemed a loss, in reality it was a great profit, because it saved everything. Now this is a very deep lesson that we have been given. These incidents in the Quran Sharif are not there as bedtime stories. They are not there for entertainment. They are not there just for the sake of some historical facts. No, it is ibrat. It is a lesson for people till the day of Qiyamah. That when a person, sometimes some things happen in dunya, one is, if there is something that happens which is negative, the first thing a person should do is reflect on his amal. That's the first thing. Reflect on his amal. Because the amal of a person bring down conditions accordingly. That is the first thing to do. The hadith sharif, it comes that a person sometimes risk is being descended for him, he commits a sin, that risk is uplifted. Istighfar becomes a means of bringing the risk. And there are various specific sins mentioned in the hadith that become a means of specific difficult conditions. When people get involved in cheating in weight and measure, then the result of this becomes drought and famine. When zina becomes widespread, then it becomes a means of such diseases which the forefathers had never heard of. Now, these are all realities which we don't need to analyze further. The first thing is, to certain things when they become common in society, the whole society bears the brunt of it. Though everybody might not be responsible for it, but when these things become common in society, then those who are involved suffer, those who are not involved suffer also. In dunya everybody suffers the consequences. If that drought strikes, that drought affects everybody. It affects the pious and the impious. And if it's something that a person specifically is doing, he'll get affected by the consequences. So, this is the first thing, to look into amal. What am I doing? Am I conducting myself correctly? Am I being obedient to Allah Ta'ala? Am I obedient to the way of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Am I getting involved in things that is inviting Allah Ta'ala's wrath? Am I doing something that is preventing the rahmat from coming? This rahmat is being, many a times, alhamdulillah, and we should do these things, the various amal that bring down the rahmat, various virtues that are mentioned for many amal. So this is what brings down the rahmat. But it's like, for example, a person has got a garden patch or something, he needs the rain. So now he needs the rain to water that piece of ground. But now when the rain is coming, he's got a roof over the whole place. So now that ground remains as dry as ever. So he needs to take out what is preventing the water from reaching the ground. So likewise, mashallah, we do these amal that bring down the rahmat, but at the same time we block it with sins. We put the canopy of sins above, as a result of which it prevents the rahmat from reaching. So that's the first thing. But then sometimes these conditions come as a test. That a person, Allah Ta'ala is putting him through some condition, but now he will respond positively, he'll make sabr on it. What he couldn't reach with his a'mal, that rank that he couldn't reach with his a'mal, he'll reach with the sabr that Allah Ta'ala will enable him to make. And it is mentioned in the hadith that a person on the day of Qiyamah, when he will see the reward of the sabr, then a person will wish he had even more of the difficulties who could have made more sabr. But that is on the day of Qiyamah that he'll wish that. Here in dunya, we have been taught to always ask for afiyat. Don't ever ask for any calamity. We must never act brave in this line. We put forward our total humility and helplessness in front of Allah Ta'ala and beg afiyat. But in any case, this comes as a test. And in this test, if he is a true servant of Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala blesses him with sabr on that test. And then that sabr becomes a means of taking him to such ranks which he could not have reached with his amal. And the benefit of this he'll achieve and receive on the day of Qiyamah. And that's when he will see what a great blessing he has received. And then the third situation is that sometimes these things come in the form of a difficulty, but within it is a great favor. Outwardly the wrapping is very scary. The wrapping is something that is probably even difficult to take. But wrapped within it, there's something very, very precious, very great. So now a person received one box, and the box was something maybe even had something sharp sticking all over the place. To hold it also is something difficult. Like that pineapple now. It's a job to even try to hold on to it. But once he's cut away the sides, now he's enjoying the beautiful, wonderful fruit inside. So likewise, sometimes these halat come outside is all very, very sharp and sometimes painful. But inside that comes a very great ni'mat and favor. He needs to be patient. It'll come in his time. It takes time to cut that sides off. But with sabr, with turning towards Allah Ta'ala, that will remove the wrapping. And then he'll enjoy the fruit inside. So similarly here, this outwardly was a loss. The boat was damaged, was outwardly a loss. But inside this loss was a great protection. Inside this loss was something that was a great benefit. So this is what insan needs to keep focusing on. That right now I can't fathom the reality. How can I expect myself to even fathom it? But I need to submit to Allah Ta'ala. Wholeheartedly, without question. That Allah Ta'ala is all wise. And in everything there is a hikmah of Allah Ta'ala. It's not possible for me to understand Allah Ta'ala's hikmah. It's like trying to put the whole ocean into less than a teacup. The teacup is too big. It will never happen. So I need to just submit. I need to accept. When a person wholeheartedly submits himself, then being human, he'll still feel whatever the emotions are. but that submission will become the balm over that emotion, and it will ease it for him. So in any case, this was the first incident that Musa alayhi salam, explains to him. The second incident, that child took his life. Allah Ta'ala ordered this to happen, and in the Quran Sharif Allah Ta'ala explains it, that this child, if he grew up, there was this inherent evil in him. He would have grown up and he would have become a very serious disbeliever. He would have even possibly jeopardized the iman of his parents. So Allah Ta'ala willed that this child should be now taken out of the equation. That was good for him also. He never reached the age of being accountable. And it became good for the parents in the sense, فَأَرَدْنَا أَن يُبْدِلَهُمَا خَيْرًا مِنْهُ زَكَاةً وَأَقْرَبَ رُحْمًا. Allah Ta'ala says we were supposed to now, and we would replace this child with something better for the parents. Mufassirin explain, they then had a daughter. And that daughter became the mother of, some say one Nabi, some say two Nabis. Now, outwardly this was a complete loss. But in the plan of Allah Ta'ala, this was to be replaced with something far better. Like somebody takes away 1 rand, and he says in place of this 1 rand, obviously in a halal way, I'm going to give you 1,000,000 rands. So now the person wants to cling onto the 1 rand, I want this 1 rand. If somebody really wants to cling on the 1 rand, they'll say, okay, I'll arrange the appointment for free for you. Because something must be wrong mentally with the person. That this is, he can see for sure this 1,000,000 rand is going to come. He wants to cling to the 1 rand. But now obviously when he cannot see it, so now he'll have to have the confidence in who is saying it to him. So this was the second incident. The third incident regarding this wall that was collapsing, Islam explains that أَمَّا الْجِدَارُ فَكَانَ لِغُلَامَيْنِ يَتِيمَيْنِ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ. This belonged to 2 orphans. And beneath this wall was a treasure that belonged to them. If this wall collapsed, this treasure would have been exposed. And it would have been usurped because they didn't have the ability to take care of it now. Others would have usurped it. So Allah Ta'ala willed that this must be protected now. And why Allah Ta'ala made this such great arrangements, that for the protection of the wealth of these yateem, Allah Ta'ala sent 2 Nabis. You go and prepare this wall. Allah Ta'ala mentions in the Quran Sharif, وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا, that their father was a pious person. They passed away, these are yateem. Every person is concerned, what my children will eat from. And for the children to eat, they are pushing them in every haram environment too. The person is crying by iman is at stake here. His father says, you have to go because what are you going to eat? Say, the iman goes also, but you must eat. Allah Ta'ala is saying, وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا. Their father was a pious person. The piety of the father, Allah Ta'ala sent 2 Anbiya to go and repair that wall and protect the wealth of those children. And in time when they would now grow up, they would be able to take care of it themselves. Allah Ta'ala would cause this treasure to be exposed in time so that they will now benefit from it. So outwardly, this was something that was a loss. In one sense, where this work was done for free. They could have taken some fee for it. But this was something that was made to be done for the protection of somebody else. For the protection of the wealth of these yateems. So likewise, a person who sticks to the path of piety, the path of the obedience of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, let alone himself, the barakat will reach his progeny also. The barakat will reach, and some say, وَكَانَ أَبَى السَّابِعِ, that this was the forefather 7 generations up, who was this pious person. The barakat of his piety was reaching 7 generations down now. So again it all comes to the same crux. That to the extent that a person is obedient to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, he is sticking to the commands of Allah Ta'ala, following the way of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There are challenges that come in dunya. Dunya is not Jannat. Jannat is where there is no challenge. Dunya, there are challenges. And neither is dunya Jahannam either. It's a mixture of some difficulty, some good, some peace, and some problems, some happiness, some grief. But a person who in all these conditions remains steadfast, makes an effort to move closer to Allah Ta'ala, Allah forbid he slips, he immediately makes tawbah and comes back to Allah Ta'ala. And he makes an effort to earn his rizq, etc., according to the commands of Allah Ta'ala. According to some Mufassirin, this treasure that was buried under this wall, there was gold and silver in it, and together with that there was one golden tablet, like a piece of gold on which there were certain things inscribed. And among the things that were inscribed, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, then the next line that was there was, strange is the condition of that person. Strange is the condition of that person who has yaqeen in taqdeer and he's still immersed in grief. Being insan, he'll feel grief, he'll feel pain, he's insan, he's not an angel, he's a human being, but he won't remain forever trapped in that grief. He will move on with it. One is the natural human nature, that grief which is part of human nature, tab'i. But that has its lifespan. After a while, time heals that. And the other is kasbi, that a person keeps it alive. He constantly keeps engaging the mind deliberately in that negative incident that happened, in the tragedy that might have taken place, in the difficulty that came, and he keeps engaging the mind deliberately in that, keeps rewinding that. That is obviously going to forever keep that grief alive. But when a person turns his mind to the reality that Allah Ta'ala is the doer, Allah Ta'ala is the planner and the best of planners, outwardly it might seem that this is a very negative situation. Behind this, what good is there? I won't know now. In time I'll also come to know. But for now, I need to submit to Allah Ta'ala. Then, strange is the condition of that person who has iman and conviction that the provider is Allah Ta'ala. And yet he crosses the limits in trying to earn his living. He goes beyond the limits in doing whatever he has to do to acquire what he wants to. And Allah Ta'ala is a provider. He is required to do only what is within the borders and the framework that Allah Ta'ala has provided, within the limits that Allah Ta'ala has set. But in that too, Allah Ta'ala will provide, not him. And there are various other advices of this nature. Strange is the condition of that person who has this conviction about hisab and accountability on the day of Qiyamah. Yet he's in a state of ghaflat. He's unmindful, he's heedless. Like a person knows tomorrow is a court case, and the end result of this case, the judgment could be a life sentence, it could be execution. And he is hale and hearty like nothing's happening. Nobody is going to say that this person knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Allah knows how much of life we have left. Our accountability could start, the accountability of the qabr could start before tonight finishes, before tomorrow. So there is no basis for a person to be in a state of ghaflat, to be heedless. Yes, Allah Ta'ala has given us the permission and the leeway to enjoy His ni'mats in the correct way, within the limits of Shariah. Whatever bounties Allah Ta'ala has blessed a person, Allah Ta'ala hasn't denied the person to enjoy those ni'mats, but in that he does not become ghafil. That he uses that also in a way that takes him closer to Allah Ta'ala, a means of shukr. And he doesn't do anything that goes against the commands of Allah Ta'ala. So this is the lesson that we have to take, that we submit ourselves wholeheartedly to Allah Ta'ala. We do not cross the limits of Allah Ta'ala. The challenges that come in dunya, we look at it from the correct perspective. The Quran Sharif in these incidents is giving us an angle to look at it from. See, to change the perspective. Not to look at everything from the perspective of dunya. To now walk the other side and look at it from the other angle, and we'll get a different view altogether. And when a person gets the other view, then suddenly what he thought was a very bleak situation, because all he could see was a blank wall in front of him. But when he sees it from the other side, he sees, no, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So now it gives a complete different picture to the whole thing. And the mu'min, when he submits himself wholeheartedly to Allah Ta'ala, then inshallah he will remain in a positive condition within himself in dunya forever, regardless of whatever the external challenges are. And obviously the akhirat, then there is no way that a person can imagine what Allah Ta'ala has stored for the true believers in the akhirat. Allah Ta'ala give us a tawfiq of staying steadfast on deen, on iman. Allah Ta'ala keep us in a way that we are always doing that which pleases Allah Ta'ala. Save us from every bit of His displeasure. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.